Good morning. Today is the 15th day of Tevet, the 26th of December, and we're on the third reading of Parashat Vayechi. And this today we're going to learn about something a little bit short, but you may have heard of it. It's called the evil eye, and it's something that a lot of people are either concerned about or have an issue with. Anyway, there was a question that was asked of Rav Ginsburg a number of years ago, and the question went like this. This is about the verse that says that Jacob blessed them, Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, "By you shall Israel invoke blessing, saying, God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. So to make them like Ephraim and Manasseh, what is that idea? Why is that the blessing that we give children? Whenever we bless children, we say, "Yisimcha Elokim ke'Ephraim v'chi Menashe." We use this verse. So the question that he was asked was, could you please tell me how to get rid of Ayin Hara, curse of the evil eye, and also how to guard against it? So his answer was like this: your greatest protection against Ayin Hara is to concentrate on having a good eye, a tov ayin. As the verse states, he who has a good eye will be blessed. Tov ayin hu yevorach. This is not the usual answer that he gives. The usual answer that he gives is that you should ignore it completely. Because if you don't believe in these things, they don't harm you, because they work by auto-suggestion. So the moment that a person is not auto-suggestible, then these things don't affect him. There are a lot of people who live their life with true fear of these things. And when someone looks at them jealously, evil eye is usually that somebody looks at you with jealousy and questions whether what you have is what you deserve, and then that leads you to question it, and it leads you to second guess yourself and so on. And the moment that you get into that space, it's not that God is questioning you, it's just that you're putting a doubt into yourself about everything that you do. We'll get back to that in a moment. Let me read the rest of the letter that he wrote. So he said the best thing is to think about good eye. If somebody looks at you with an evil eye, so just think about good eye. What is good eye? In Hebrew, it's tov ayin. Tov ayin hu yevorach. He who has a good eye will be blessed. The numerical value of good is 17, and the numerical value of ayin is 130. So together they equal 147. And if you recall, 147 is the number of years that Jacob lived. On his deathbed, Jacob blessed the sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, that they may multiply like fish. This is in chapter 48, verse 15. What's the idea about fish? The sages teach from this that Ayin Hara has no power over the children of Joseph, specifically Manasseh and Ephraim. All the Jewish people are considered the children of Joseph, who was blessed with the higher eye, Alei Ayin. It was in the beginning when he became the viceroy. Banot Sa'ada Alei Ayin, which is superior and greater than Ayin Hara, a higher eye. So what is the higher eye exactly? What does that even mean? To have a higher eye as opposed to an evil eye. A higher eye is always to look at things from God's perspective, to try to see things from God's perspective. And the number one thing that needs to change when a person switches to trying to see things from God's perspective is that there's no deserve or don't deserve. In other words, there's nothing that I can really do in my life that will make me deserve all the goodness that I have. The problem that we live is we sort of live like accountants with God, and we try to say, well, I did this and this and this, and so you owe me so and so and so. And we try to keep the transgressions lower than the positive things that we do. And somehow we have like a cookie counter, trying to collect cookies in the heaven, trying to live in that way. Now, it's not that that is completely wrong, because there is such a thing, and the Torah does talk about reward and punishment. But the concept of reward and punishment being as simple as trying to collect commandments, things that I did, things I didn't do, is is not very mature. It's sort of like a childish point of view on things. And again, child is not somebody who's inconsequential. It just means that it's an immature picture of things. So most people don't mature from that. We usually say that idolatrous behavior was based on this type of accounting. When you thought that God was sort of like your partner, or the idol, or whatever this force was, and you were working for it, and so you had to find some kind of balance with it and do what it said and what it told you to. So you can treat God the same way, and then it's a type of idolatry. It's not, God forbid, you're an idolater. It just means that your thinking is still immature. So you're going through the same types of emotions. And I always wanted to write a book about the maturing in the Milky Way. I think there was a book like that, something like that, Coming of Age in the Milky Way. And the idea of coming of age in the Milky Way, or coming of age on planet Earth, is that the history of civilization is the history of coming out of looking at our relationship with everything that's around us, which is another way of saying looking at our relationship with God, from an immature stance to a more mature stance. And what Abraham went through was that he broke out of adolescence. He broke out of the idolatrous point of view. It's when you also begin to understand, hopefully your parents do too, that your relationship with your parents is not, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a certain point when you left school. I remember that. The day that I sort of left high school, I finished high school, and I realized that my life would no longer be exactly how much homework I did and how much I didn't, and what kind of grade I got and what I didn't get. And I realized it was going to be much more complex than that. It's not going to be that simple, like just to count my grades or count my merits and demerits. So when you break out of that, when you become a parent yourself, and you begin to see things from the other side, you realize that it's really not about that. And so that is the higher I. The higher I is being able to understand that everything that I receive is really a gift. It's not because I did something or didn't do something. But by the way, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't ask. A lot of times people hear this and then they say, okay, so the world is impersonal, God is impersonal. Look, it's very personal. It's just much more complex than just saying, if I did this, I deserve that. If I didn't do this, I don't deserve that. It's much more complex than that, but on the other hand, it's still personal. And so the Torah holds the paradox on both sides. On the one hand, it tells you, look, as long as you need to use merits and demerits to figure out how you want to conduct yourself in the world, do that. It's not entirely wrong, it's just immature. But eventually, you need to jump up to the next level. And at the next level, the whole thing of evil eye, I deserve this, I don't deserve this, somebody looks at me this way, questions me, doesn't question me, those things don't hold very much weight in our picture of life. And then you can begin to start thinking about what does it really mean to have a relationship with the infinite, which doesn't need anything from me. It's not looking for me to give it anything. It's not looking for me to... so the relationship is really about my growth and whether I'm becoming something more mature, something that can take more responsibility on, and so on. So with that, we'll finish because we started a little late. Sorry for the late start, and hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
What? The Rabbi does talk a lot about reward and punishment, that you have to earn stuff.
Okay.
Why?
I guess for the people that he was talking, I don't know exactly what you're referring to. We have to look at everything in its place, but I imagine he was talking to people that's how they understood things. But the higher outlook on this is, again, that's a subset. It's a subset of how to think about life, and eventually you need to move further. I'll give you a simple example. Whenever someone was faced with an operation or something like that, and the Rebbe told them everything would be okay, so then invariably almost people are worried. and they don't know how to take it and what's going to happen. And so once, I think I spoke about this also, once somebody wrote to him, and he said, I know that you promised everything would be okay, and I believe you, but I'm worried about my own iniquities. Meaning that maybe I have too many sins, and even though you promised me, you don't know the sins that I have, and God is not going to pull through for me. So the Rebbe said that just by the fact that you'll have trust in God now, that He wants you to succeed, He wants you to get through this operation, He wants you to be well, just by having trust in Him, you are making up for all the iniquities that you performed. Now what he's saying is, it doesn't matter how many things you had on the previous level, the fact that you're willing to go up a notch, you're willing to go up to a completely different type of relationship, a relationship that's not based on how much did I do or not do, but a relationship that's based on something much higher, which is called trust, which is called confidence in God. So that itself, it wipes the slate of all the previous accounting that you had, and all that previous accounting doesn't hold at this level, because having that type of relationship, of having trust, is completely different than being in a relationship of reward and punishment.
Is trust one of the 630 commandments?
Very good question. Not per se, but it's what we would call, it's one of the extensions of what it means to love God. To love God also means, according to many of the opinions, it extends into having trust in God.
And love of Hashem is greater than the other commandments?
And sorry?
Love of Hashem is greater than the other commandments, according to what you just said?
No, it's that the duties of the heart elevate you to a completely different type of relationship, where you continue to do everything else, but it has completely different meaning. You don't do it for the sake of gaining points. You do it because it builds the relationship. Right? If you're working on reward and punishment, if you're thinking about, so I do this act, it causes this, I do this act, it causes that, so you're basically forcing God as a word to work on your level. But the moment you're willing to go beyond that, so you still have the 613 commandments, but they're not meant to force Him to do something in exchange. They're done, that's what trust means. Like if I have trust with someone else, my feeling towards them is that I trust them despite even appearances. It might even be that, for a moment it looks to me like things are wrong. Or more than that, I may extend trust to them in the sense that they may even do things that are wrong, but I still trust them. In the sense that this is the way, knowing that, for instance, my child may do something wrong, but I still trust them because I know that extending them trust is what's going to build the relationship. It's going to build them. It's going to elevate them to a higher level. So trust goes far beyond just the usual accounting and love also. So obviously, same thing. That's how the heart is different than the mind.
So does it mean now we'll be doing the 630 mitzvahs out of love more than out of fear?
Right.